Saint Nocturne University. Book 2. Chapter 2. Dawn did not arrive over Ashborne. It leaked in. The sky over the east side of the city turned violet first, then grey at the edges, then a strange bruised pink that made the old performance district look underwater. The red-out clouds had gathered there, low and thick, pressing down over the blocks where theaters, music halls, clubs, studios, and art spaces sat shoulder to shoulder with boarded-up storefronts and luxury renovation banners. Vale Stage was not one building. That was the first problem. Blood Court had Court Tower. Howl Ground had the stadium. Market Route had Maxine's shop and the old Root House beneath it. But Vale Stage was a district. A living, shifting artery of Ashborne where every outsider who had ever been told to entertain, perform, disguise, translate, soften, distract, or make the powerful feel cultured had left something behind. Brielle Laurent sat on the curb outside Howl Ground Stadium, her phone in one hand and the burner in the other, staring at the message from Aya's old Blood Court account. Do not sing what they ask. Sing what they stole. The words had not changed in 20 minutes. She had reread them anyway, because her brain wanted them to become instructions. They refused. Around her, the stadium emptied in uneven waves. Wolves hugged. Wolves argued. Wolves checked on elders. Wolves glared at Taj. Wolves glared at Ephraim Vale, who had disappeared during the seal collapse with Councilman Mercer because villains at Saint Nocturne loved vanishing right before accountability could get hands. Rome sat with his mother now, wrapped in her arms while she cried into his hair and threatened to ground him until retirement. Marva Cross stood near the field gate with Imani, speaking quietly. Taj waited 10 feet away, head lowered, not invited into the conversation and not brave enough to leave. Kiki kept watch like a nosy bodyguard, arms crossed, eyes moving between everyone's faces. Zora and Aya stood near the parking lot under a broken light, close enough to speak and far enough to avoid the conversation they owed each other. Malik leaned against his car with Andre, both of them watching Court Tower flicker dark in the distance. Serafina spoke on the phone in a voice so calm it made people nearby nervous. Professor Graves and Maxine argued without raising their voices, which somehow made it feel worse. Lila was already transcribing audio from Olin Mercer's latest accidental confession, and Dre was eating one of the foil-wrapped dinner rolls from his backpack with the expression of a man who had accepted that history was happening but not on an empty stomach. Juno sat on the hood of Andre's SUV and watched Brielle watch the message. You want me to say something supportive? Juno asked. Brielle did not look up. No. Good. I didn't have anything. Growth. I thought so. Brielle closed the burner phone and pressed it against her knee. Her throat hurt, though she had barely used it since Court Tower. It was not physical. Not fully. It felt like something inside her voice had been handled too many times by people who never asked permission. Nia approached slowly. Brielle felt her before she saw her, not magically, just through the sudden care everyone took around silence. Juno slid off the hood. I'm going to go stand somewhere less emotionally expensive, they said. Brielle wanted to tell them to stay. Her pride said nothing. Juno walked away. Nia stopped beside the curb, arms folded around herself. She looked exhausted. Not fragile. Exhausted. There was a difference, and Brielle was trying to learn it quickly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Nia said, I'm coming to Vale Stage. Brielle looked up sharply. No. Nia's eyebrows lifted. That was fast. You don't need to be there. That's not your decision. Brielle closed her mouth. The correction stung because it was true. Nia sat beside her on the curb, leaving a careful foot of space between them. "I don't forgive you," Nia said. Brielle nodded. "I don't know what part was your fault, what part was Juno, what part was Camille, what part was the school, what part was all these adults with their secret rooms and fancy names." Nia stared at the stadium lights dimming one by one. "But when I hear your voice, my body remembers being lied to." Brielle's fingers tightened around the burner phone. "I know," she said. "No, you don't." Brielle looked at her. Nia's eyes were wet, but steady. "You know guilt," Nia said. "You don't know what it feels like when your own mind turns into a locked door and everybody else has keys." Brielle wanted to look away. She did not. Nia continued, "That message said sing what they stole. They stole from me too. So I'm coming." Brielle swallowed. "You shouldn't have to," she said. Nia looked at her for a long moment. "None of us should have to do any of this." That was fair. A few feet away, Lila pretended not to listen and failed. Dre saw and handed her a dinner roll. She took it without looking. "I don't want bread," she muttered. "You do." She bit into it, then looked annoyed that he had been right. Across the parking lot, Imani stood with her grandmother under the stadium gate. The old pack roll had vanished, but faint silver letters still glowed in the cracks of the concrete where names had been rewritten. Howl ground smelled different now. Rain, old dirt, wolf musk, burnt magic, and relief that had not yet become joy. Marva Cross leaned on her cane. "You angry with me?" she said. Imani looked at the field. "Yes." "Good." Imani glanced at her. "That's all you got? What you want?" "A cookie. I want to know how many things my family has lied about." Marva nodded slowly. "Enough that the truth will need chairs." Imani let out a short laugh despite herself. Then her face hardened again. "You burned the roll." "I did." "You hid children." "I did." "You let everyone believe Eastward was just power-hungry and dirty." Marva's mouth tightened. "Some of them were. Some of us were too. That's the part family stories trim off." Imani watched Taj standing alone, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of every eye avoiding him. "He sold us out." "Yes." "He confessed." "Yes." "That doesn't fix it?" "No." Imani looked at her grandmother. "What happens to him?" Marva's gaze moved to Taj too. "Pack judgment. Restitution. Witness duty. He will spend a long time earning the right to be ignored peacefully." Imani's mouth almost moved. Not a smile. "Close." Marva turned to her. "And you? What about me? You claimed gate witness in front of old law. That doesn't disappear because the seal closed." Imani's stomach tightened. "I didn't ask for leadership." "Good. People who ask too pretty usually want mirrors, not responsibility. I don't want Howl House kneeling." "Then don't let them." Imani looked at the jacket on her shoulders. "What if I mess it up?" Marva snorted. "You will." Comforting. "You'll apologize, repair, learn, and mess up differently. That's leadership if you scrape the speeches off." For the first time all night, Imani's eyes burned. She looked away before tears could become a public event. Marva pretended not to see. "Now go help that siren girl," Marva said. Imani blinked. "Brielle. She got a mouth problem with a stage problem," and wolves know stages better than people think. We do. Baby, every pack meeting is theater with teeth. Kiki, who had wandered close enough to hear, pointed at Marva. That is exactly what I've been saying. Marva looked at her. You've been saying a lot. When are you explaining Andre Voss? Kiki immediately turned around. Imani needs me. Marva called after her, I know your mama. Kiki walked faster. By the time the caravan left Howl ground, Ashborne had started pretending it was morning. Buses moved again on some streets. Corner stores opened their gates halfway. People swept glass from sidewalks. A man sold coffee from a cart under a flickering red traffic light and charged extra for Apocalypse Espresso. Someone had spray-painted "We survived the redout before breakfast" on a boarded-up storefront. Human news vans clustered downtown and near Saint Nocturne's main gate. Reporters spoke solemnly about infrastructure failures, student protests, and unconfirmed electrical phenomena. Behind one reporter, a faintly translucent woman floated past holding a grocery bag. The camera blurred her automatically. Ashborne had practice. The Supernatural Council released another statement. Lila read it aloud from her phone in Andre's SUV, voice dripping contempt. The council urges calm as emergency ward technicians resolve a rare civic outage. Speculation regarding student involvement is irresponsible and potentially dangerous. Dre, sitting beside her, said, they use calm like a weapon. Headline, Lila said immediately. He looked over. What? That's the headline. I was complaining. You multitask. She typed it into her notes. Brielle sat in the front passenger seat this time because Andre insisted he needed someone watching the sound equipment and because Juno had quietly chosen to ride in Malik's car with Zora and Aya, which created its own small storm of discomfort. In Malik's car, Juno sat between Zora and Aya in the back, regretting every choice that led to having shoulders. Zora looked out one window. Aya looked out the other. Juno sat between them like a decorative hostage. Malik drove. Serafina was on the phone again. Yes, mother, she said calmly. I understand what legal exposure means. A pause. No, I did not defect. I made a decision. Another pause. No, those are not always different in this family. She hung up. Malik glanced at her. You good? Serafina looked forward. Do not ask me questions in that voice. What voice? The one where you pretend concern is casual so rejection won't embarrass you. Juno whispered, oh. Zora looked over. You too loud for somebody in the middle seat. Juno sat straighter. Apologies. Aya watched the building slide past. What is Vale Stage now? Malik answered, the official district is called East Argosy Arts Corridor. Zora made a face. That sounds gentrified. It is, Aya said. Her voice changed slightly. Zora noticed. Aya continued, it used to be clubs, theaters, studios, drag houses, spirit parlors, rehearsal spaces, little galleries. Places Valeborn could perform without being owned by vampire venues or studied by root circle departments. Juno said quietly, now half the buildings are sponsored. By who? Zora asked. Malik already knew the answer. Serafina gave it anyway. Cultural Preservation Foundations. Arts Revitalization Grants. Donor Trusts. Nightingale Money. St. Crowne Money. DuPont Money. Voss Money. Zora stared out the window harder. Of course. Juno's hands twisted in their lap. Valeborn don't have territory like wolves or houses like vampires. Stage is the closest thing. Not just performance. Witness. Mask. Voice. Becoming what you need to be long enough to survive a room. Aya looked at them. And powerful people turn that into entertainment. Juno nodded. The seal feeds on being watched, they said. Zora turned. What does that mean for Brielle? Juno's mouth tightened. It means everyone watching her might make it stronger. The car went quiet. A mile ahead, the violet sky pulsed. The East Argosy Arts corridor began with a mural of a woman singing stars from her mouth. Someone had painted over the original years ago, but the redout had peeled away the newer layers. Beneath the sleek city-approved colors, older art glowed: masks, dancers, black queer elders with feathered shoulders, sirens with open throats, shapeshifters with many faces, ghost musicians, fey children running through fireflies, a theater marquee reading the veil stage welcomes who you are and who you had to become. By the time the group arrived, the street was already crowded. Not like Howl Ground. This was different. Artists, performers, club kids, elders, students, drag mothers, musicians, mediums, poets, dancers, theater techs, bartenders, stylists, ghosts, sirens, shapeshifters, fey-blooded families, demon-eyed poets smoking under awnings, human neighbors who knew enough not to ask the wrong questions. People stood outside venues with candles, instruments, costume bags, protest signs, and faces that said they had been waiting for a bill to come due. At the center of the district stood the old Argosy Theater. Its marquee flickered between three names. Argosy Theater. Vale Stage. Nocturne Cultural Annex opening soon. The last one made the crowd hiss every time it appeared. A luxury development banner hung across the theater doors. Coming this spring, the Argosy Experience. A premier immersive performance lounge by Nightingale Trust. Someone had thrown red paint across the word experience. Or maybe it was not paint. Brielle got out of the car and felt the street turn toward her. No one shouted. That was worse. People knew her. Some personally. Some from performances. Some from clips. Some from the shade room below. Some from last night's confession. Some because siren voices traveled even when names did not. An older veil-born woman with silver blue eyes and a fur-trimmed robe stood beneath the marquee, one hand on a cane covered in rhinestones. Juno inhaled sharply. Brielle whispered, "Who is that?" Juno's voice lowered. "Mama Odessa." That meant nothing to Zora, but it meant something to every veil-born within hearing. Even André straightened. Mama Odessa looked ancient and theatrical and completely unimpressed by the weather. Her hair was piled high in white curls. Her lipstick was dark purple. Her earrings were tiny mirrors. Around her neck hung 7 keys, none of them the same shape. She looked at Brielle for a long moment. Then said, "So this is the little girl who taught the school to gossip in harmony." Brielle swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." The crowd murmured. Mama Odessa's eyes narrowed, not cruelly. "Precisely. Are you here to apologize, perform, or save yourself?" Brielle lifted her chin. "I don't know." A few people reacted. Mama Odessa smiled faintly. "Good. Honest confusion beats rehearsed redemption." Kiki leaned toward Imani. "I like her." Imani whispered, "You like any elder who scares you with accessories." "I contain patterns." Mama Odessa's gaze moved across the group. Zora. Aya. Nasir. Malik. Serafina. Imani. Taj. Lila. Dre. Professor Graves. Maxine. Her eyes stopped on Professor Graves. Sana. Professor Graves inclined her head. Odessa. Still signing things you regret? Professor Graves did not answer. Mama Odessa turned to Maxine. Eloise, send her mouth upstairs, or is she coming herself? Maxine's eyes narrowed. You hear my mother. Everybody with sense hears dead Baptistes when they're mad. The gold beads on Aya's wrist clicked. Mabel's voice drifted out. Odessa, you still overdressed for other people's emergencies. Mama Odessa smiled properly then. And you still dead with commentary. A few Vale-born elders laughed. The tension shifted, not gone, but breathing. Then the theater doors opened by themselves. Inside was darkness. Not empty darkness. Stage darkness. Waiting. A message appeared across the marquee in violet light. Final seal active. Vale stage requires performance. Brielle's stomach turned. The crowd murmured again. Nia stepped beside her. So did Juno. Brielle looked at them both. Nia said, I told you I'm coming. Juno nodded. Me too. Brielle tried to joke. Nothing came. Instead, she said, I'm scared. Nia's face softened by one impossible inch. Juno said, good. Means you're not performing confidence. Brielle laughed, shaky and small. Then the marquee changed. Cast list loading. Every phone lit. The shade room below posted a series of names, one by one. Brielle Laurent voice taken / mouth built. Nia Bellamy memory taken / witness returned. Juno Price face taken / face loaned. Dre Coleman labor ignored / record kept. Lila Freeman truth hunted / story weaponized. 7 Monroe prophecy stolen / prophecy forged. 7 went still. Zora turned to him. His face had gone pale in the violet light. 7, she said. He stared at the phone. The draft Brielle had refused to open in the car had found another way. The marquee flickered. A new line appeared. Special feature, the dead student whose destiny was reused. 7 stepped back. No, he said. The theater lights inside turned on. A spotlight hit the stage. In the center stood a young man. Transparent at the edges. Brown skin. Glasses. Saint Nocturne sweater. One hand holding a stack of papers. His chest shimmered with the faint silver outline of an old wound, but no gore, no detail, only the suggestion of something ended too soon. Miles Holloway. The campus ghost from the library. He looked out at the crowd and focused on 7. You, Miles said. 7's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Zora whispered, you know him. 7 shook his head too quickly. Miles smiled sadly. No, the ghost said. But he knows my prophecy. The crowd turned. 7 looked like someone had removed the floor beneath him. Brielle stared at the stage, then at 7, then at the marquee. The seal was not waiting for a song. It was arranging an audience. Mama Odessa tapped her rhinestone cane on the sidewalk. No one enters casually, she said. Vale stage does not eat only lies. It eats the applause people get for surviving them. The theater doors widened. Inside, the stage brightened. Rows of empty seats waited. On each seat sat a mask. Some gold. Some black. Some silver. Some violet. Some shaped like laughing faces. Some crying. Some blank. Dre looked into the theater and whispered, "Absolutely not." Lila's recorder clicked on by itself again. "Apparently yes," she said. They entered because every seal had made refusal impossible until someone defined it properly. The Argosy Theater smelled like dust, velvet, perfume, rainwater, old smoke, hairspray, and electricity. The lobby walls were covered in posters from past shows. Not all of them from this world. A drag review from 1978. A siren choir benefit from 1994. A ghost jazz residency that had apparently run for 31 years after the trumpet player's death. A student showcase Brielle recognized because she had performed there freshman year, before Saint Nocturne moved Veil-born performances onto campus and called it inclusion. One poster had her face on it. Younger. Brighter. Smiling like being watched meant being loved. The poster's eyes followed her. She looked away. Inside the main theater, the empty seats filled themselves as people entered. Not with bodies. With shadows. An audience of silhouettes appeared row by row, clapping silently. Some wore old hats. Some had horns. Some had veils. Some had animal eyes. Some were children. Some were elders. Some were nothing but outlines and attention. Mama Odessa stood at the front aisle. Veil Stage remembers every performance forced, stolen, bought, mocked, copied, consumed, or praised without protection, she said. It remembers when outsiders were welcomed only if they entertained. It remembers when masks became survival and then became cages. The spotlight shifted to Miles Holloway. Seven stood in the aisle, frozen. Zora moved beside him. "Talk to me." "I didn't know," he said. His voice sounded thin. "Know what?" He looked at the ghost on stage. "My entrance prophecy. I bought it from a broker." Zora stared. "You said you forged it?" "I did. I forged my name onto an existing prophetic structure. I thought it was abandoned. Generic. Old. The broker said it was from a failed admissions archive." Miles laughed softly. The sound echoed through the theater. "Failed," he repeated. Seven flinched. Miles walked to the edge of the stage. His feet did not touch the floor. "That word followed me too," he said. Failed student. Failed scholarship. Failed medium. Failed boy who thought Saint Nocturne cared about talent if it came without money. Seven's face twisted. "I didn't know it was yours." Miles looked at him. "Would it have stopped you?" The question cut clean. Seven did not answer. Zora wanted to defend him. She could not find a defense that was not another costume. Miles turned to the audience. "I wrote a thesis on living institutions," he said. "Saint Nocturne's appetite. Its patterns. Its scandals. Its way of putting students against each other and calling the wreckage culture. I found the first version of the Shade Room below in old bulletin board spells from the 90s. Brielle's eyes widened. Miles looked at her. "You didn't invent the mouth. You modernized it." That should have made her feel better. It did not. Lila whispered, "He knew." Dre wrote faster than he had all night. Professor Graves stood near the aisle, face stricken. Miles looked at her too. "You refused my thesis," he said. The theater went cold. Professor Graves closed her eyes. I did. Zora turned toward her. Of course. Professor Graves opened her eyes. I thought if his work entered the archive, the school would notice him. Miles smiled. It did anyway. Silence fell. No one needed details. The outline was enough. A student got too close. A school that fed on secrets noticed. Adults made careful decisions that did not save him. 7 stared at the ghost. My prophecy got me admitted, he said. Miles nodded. My prophecy got me buried in special collections. 7's eyes filled. He blinked hard, furious at himself. The marquee inside the theater flickered above the stage. Confession token required. 7 laughed once, broken. Of course. Zora grabbed his arm. You don't owe the stage your blood. No, he said. I owe him his name. He stepped forward. Every shadow in the audience leaned in. 7 reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded paper. Not the official fake prophecy. The original. He must have carried it with him all night. Of course he had. The paper shook in his hand. My admission prophecy was forged, he said. The theater absorbed the words. I told myself I was beating a rigged system. I told myself legacy kids lie with buildings and donations, so my lie was just survival with better handwriting. Delphine Hart, who had arrived with a group of Root Circle students and stood near the back, said nothing. 7 looked at Miles. But I used someone else's work. Someone else's fate. Someone else's language for wanting a place that did not want him back. The spotlight widened. Miles' outline became clearer. 7 unfolded the paper. The prophecy belongs to Miles Holloway. The paper burst into silver flame. 7 did not drop it. The flame climbed over his fingers without burning skin. Words lifted from the ash and rearranged in the air. Miles Holloway thesis rejected / prophecy stolen / death sealed. 7 looked up. No, he whispered. Professor Graves stiffened. Miles' expression changed. The theater doors slammed shut. The silent shadow audience began clapping. Slowly. Once. Twice. Then louder. The sound built without hands moving. Mama Odessa's face hardened. The stage is opening the deeper show. Brielle's phone buzzed. Nocturne_system had posted again through the shade room below. Veil stage special presentation, everybody wants the truth until the truth needs lighting. The stage transformed. Velvet curtains swept back. The set became Saint Nocturne's library basement, years earlier. A table. A thesis manuscript. A young Miles arguing with Professor Graves. Then another figure entered. Dean Nightingale. The audience hissed. Not the living audience. The shadows. The memory played without forcing gore, without spectacle, only the cruel neatness of institutional harm. Miles presenting evidence. Professor Graves warning him to stop. Nightingale offering him protection through silence. Miles refusing. The library shelves closing like walls. The scene cut before the worst. Enough. Miles stood apart from the memory, watching his own final hours reduced to stagecraft. 7 covered his mouth. Zora's anger toward him tangled with anger for him and for Miles and for every student who had mistaken admission for belonging. Professor Graves whispered, I tried to get him out. Miles looked at her. You tried quietly, he said. That sentence destroyed the room more thoroughly than shouting could have. Professor Graves bowed her head. The spotlight moved to Lila. Her recorder glowed. The marquee changed. Truth hunted / story weaponized. Lila looked up. No. Dre said, you don't have to. The stage answered by projecting her article drafts across the walls. Headlines. Notes. Exposés. Private interviews. Names of sources. Some redacted. Some not. Stories she had buried because they would hurt students more than systems. Stories she had wanted to publish because being right felt almost as good as being just. One draft enlarged across the curtain. Brielle Laurent and the Siren Problem, Campus Influence or Student Safety Threat. Brielle turned. Lila's face went pale. I didn't publish it, Lila said. Brielle's voice was quiet. But you wrote it? I wrote a lot of drafts. About me being a problem. About the school using your voice before we knew that's what happened. That title doesn't sound like the school was the problem. Lila swallowed. Nia watched both of them from the front row. The theater waited. Lila gripped her recorder. I wanted a clean villain, she said. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. I wanted the story before anyone else had it. I told myself exposure is justice, but sometimes I shaped people into proof before they had language for what happened to them. She looked at Brielle. I'm sorry. Brielle did not forgive her. Not then. But she nodded once. The draft on the wall burned away. Another appeared. Nia Bellamy, the face of Saint Nocturne's memory scandal. Nia stiffened. Lila turned to her fully, horror in her face. I never meant. Nia's voice was tired. But you almost did. Lila closed her eyes. Yes. The recorder in her hand cracked down the side. She held it up. I give up the story if the person inside it says no. The theater went still. For a journalist, that was not a small confession. The recorder repaired itself. Then copied every audio file from the night into 3 glowing orbs that floated toward Nia, Brielle, and Dre. Mama Odessa nodded. Better. Dre stared at the orb hovering near him. Why do I get one? The Marquis answered. Labor ignored / record kept. Dre sighed. I was hoping to remain supporting cast. Kiki called from 2 rows back, too late, baby, you got symbolism. The spotlight moved to him. Dre stood in the aisle with his notepad in one hand and a dinner roll in the other. He looked down at the roll. Then at the stage. This feels targeted. The audience waited. Dre exhaled. I like being underestimated, he said. That surprised people. He continued, voice level. I act like it annoys me, and it does. But it also lets me watch. It lets me collect things without being responsible for saying them. I told myself I was keeping receipts for the right moment. He looked at Nia. Then at Lila. Then at Zora. Then at Caleb's absent place in the story. Sometimes I kept them because knowing made me feel safer than acting. His notepad flipped open. Pages tore themselves out, rising into the air. Notes from donor dinners. Overheard conversations. Council phrases. Student confessions. Little jokes. Big crimes. Things Dre had heard while pouring drinks, stocking chips, carrying trays, clearing plates. The pages arranged into a timeline above the stage. Not gossip. Evidence. Dre looked at it and said, no more private archive. The pages copied themselves into Lila's repaired recorder, Nia's orb, Brielle's phone, and Professor Graves' hands. Dre sat back down immediately. Kiki shouted, "That was good." Dre pointed at her without looking. "Do not make me a moment." The spotlight moved again. To Juno. Juno's face shifted before anyone spoke. Not into another person. Through many. Brielle's face for one terrible second. A catering worker. A theater professor. A laughing freshman. A crying lover. Their own face, then not, then back again. The marquee read. Face taken / face loaned. Juno stood. "I thought being anyone meant no one could hurt me as myself," they said. Their voice echoed strangely, layered with all the voices they had borrowed. "I made impersonation a joke before anyone could call it violation. I said yes to rooms because I wanted to be chosen, even if they wanted my face and not me." They looked at Nia. "I wore Brielle's face and led you into harm." Nia's jaw tightened. Juno's eyes filled. "I am sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because the stage wants a confession. Because you saw someone you thought was safe, and I helped make safety into a mask." The theater did not absolve them. It did something better. It held the words without applause. Juno reached up and touched their own cheek. Their features stabilized. For the first time all series, their face did not flicker at all. Then the spotlight moved to Nia. The entire theater resisted breathing. Brielle stood immediately. "No." Nia looked at her. The marquee glowed. Memory taken / witness returned. Mama Odessa's cane struck the floor. "The stage may ask," she said. "It may not take." The words became law. The spotlight softened. Nia stood slowly. "I don't want to perform what happened to me," she said. The theater listened. "I don't want my pain turning into proof for people who only believe harm when it has good lighting. I don't want to be the face of anything. I don't want to be brave because somebody else was cruel." The shadow audience lowered its heads. Nia lifted the glowing orb Lila's recorder had given her. "But I want my memory to belong to me. I want the record. I want the choice to speak or not speak without somebody burying either option." The orb entered her chest like light through water. Nia inhaled sharply. Brielle stepped forward, then stopped herself. Nia did not fall. She stood taller. The marquee changed. Witness returned. Then the spotlight moved to Brielle. The theater seemed to lean toward her. Every mask on every empty seat turned. The shadow audience raised its silent faces. The marquee read. Voice taken / mouth built. Brielle stood in the aisle, center of the room, and for once attention felt like weight instead of air. Her phone buzzed. Nocturne _system. Sing to close the seal. Another message overlaid it. Aurelia _Crowne. Do not sing what they ask. The stage filled with images of Brielle's life as performance. Little Brielle singing at family cookouts while adults said, "Do that pretty note again." Middle school Brielle being told to use her gift to calm a room. Freshman Brielle going viral without knowing admissions had boosted the clip. Brielle laughing into her phone while posting someone else's humiliation. Brielle on stage at the mixer, one note too much, the confession spell riding under it. Brielle crying in the dining hall while Nia remembered a face that was not hers. The theater waited for a song. The whole city, somehow, seemed to wait too. Outside, people gathered under the marquee. Phones lifted. Live streams connected. Human and supernatural, student and elder, performer and spectator, everyone drawn by the last seal's hunger. Brielle looked at the crowd inside. Nia, Juno, Lila, Dre, Zora, Aya, Nasir, Malik, Serafina, Imani, Kiki, 7. Professor Graves, Maxine, Mama Odessa. All of them watching. She could feel the seal feeding already. Not on sound. On anticipation. On the idea that her voice should fix what everyone else broke. Brielle stepped onto the stage. The audience clapped. This time, the shadows moved. Their hands came together without sound. Brielle took the microphone waiting at center stage. She looked at it. Then looked at Mama Odessa. What happens if I don't sing? Mama Odessa's smile was slow and proud. Then we find out whether the stage loves your voice or your obedience. Brielle looked at Nia. Then at Juno. Then at the phone in her hand. She opened the shade room below admin panel. The system pulsed. Publish final performance. Brielle smiled. Not her camera smile. Not the siren smile. A tired, sharp, living smile. No, she said into the microphone. The theater shuddered. The seal did not like that. Brielle continued. I am not singing the city shut. I am not making a pretty sound so donors feel healed, so students feel avenged, so the school gets one last performance out of my throat and calls it freedom. The violet light flickered. The shadow audience shifted restlessly. I built a mouth, Brielle said. I used it badly. The school used it worse. So I'm not giving it a song. She lifted her phone. I'm giving it back every voice it stole. She hit publish. Not a post. An archive. The theater exploded with sound. Not Brielle's voice. Everyone's. Miles Holloway reading from his thesis. Nia saying, my choice. Juno saying, my face. Dre saying, no more private archive. Lila saying, I give up the story if the person inside it says no. Zora saying, family. Nasir saying, my life before I knew it was mine. Aya saying, I was taken. Malik saying, I refuse the right to inherit people. Imani saying, no one owns a wolf's name without consent. Serafina saying, refusal starts somewhere. Taj saying, I sold the gate. Marva saying, I broke a cage. Professor Graves saying, I signed. Maxine saying, I chose the child I could reach. Voices layered and rose, messy, uneven, imperfect, refusing harmony. The seal screamed. Because it could not turn a chorus into a solo. The stage floor cracked with violet light. The masks on the seats shattered one by one, not violently enough to hurt anyone, just breaking like cheap porcelain under truth. Outside, the marquee flickered. Nocturne Cultural Annex opening soon. Then burned out. Underneath, the old name returned. Vale Stage. The shadow audience stood. For one terrible second, Brielle thought they were angry. Then they bowed. Not to her. To all of them. The violet line connecting Vale Stage to Saint Nocturne snapped. Across Ashborne, the red-out clouds broke apart. Morning finally arrived. Real morning. Gold light poured down Argosy Avenue, hitting wet pavement, broken glass, painted murals, rhinestone canes, tired students, angry elders, exposed vampires, grieving sisters, guilty professors, and one siren standing on a stage with a dead microphone and no song left to sell. The final seal closed. No one cheered at first. Then Kiki started crying and clapping at the same time, which made Rome clap, which made the Vale-born elders clap, which made the crowd outside erupt, which made Brielle cover her face with one hand because applause still hurt and healed in the same place. Nia did not clap. She walked onto the stage. Brielle lowered her hand. Nia stood in front of her and said, "That was better than a song." Brielle's eyes filled. "Thank you. I still don't forgive you." "I know. But I believe you're trying." Brielle nodded, tears slipping down her face. "That's enough for today," Nia said. It was more than Brielle expected. Behind them, Miles Holloway stood at the edge of the stage, clearer now. Seven approached slowly. "I'm sorry," Seven said. Miles looked at him. "I know. I'll make sure your thesis is published under your name." Miles smiled faintly. "You'll make sure it changes something." Seven swallowed. "I'll try." Miles' smile faded. Quietly. Seven looked toward Professor Graves. Then back at Miles. "No." The ghost nodded. His outline began to thin. Professor Graves stepped forward, voice breaking. "Miles." He looked at her. For a moment, he was just a student again. Tired. Brilliant. Young. "You should have chosen me loudly," he said. Then he vanished. Professor Graves closed her eyes. No one comforted her. That felt right. The first notification came 3 minutes later. The shade room below posted one final message. Not in its usual tone. No jokes. No captions. No bite. 4 seals closed. Readout ended. Saint Nocturne system disconnected from city anchors. Archive release in progress. Student records restored to student control where possible. Warning, campus heart remains active. Founder's blood cycle not complete. The theater went silent. Brielle looked at the screen. "Campus heart," she whispered. Professor Graves opened her eyes. Maxine swore softly. Zora turned toward Aya. "What does that mean?" Aya looked toward the west, where Saint Nocturne's spires rose in the distance above the city. "It means the seals were not the ritual," she said. Nasir stared at the same horizon. "They were the locks." Malik's phone buzzed. Then Zora's. Then everyone's. A live video opened without anyone touching their screens. Saint Nocturne University. The chapel. The doors wide open. Dean Lucien Nightingale stood on the steps in daylight, calm, polished, untouched by the night's wreckage. Behind him, students gathered in the quad, confused, frightened, drawn by something they could not see. At his side stood Camille St. Crowne, free, unrestrained, smiling like Court Tower had merely inconvenienced her. Councilman Olin Mercer stood on the other side. Ephraim Vale behind him. And between them, floating above the chapel doors, was the original Founder Pact, its signatures burning red. Dean Nightingale looked directly into the recording. "Students of Saint Nocturne," he said. "The city anchors have been severed. You have demanded truth, autonomy, and consent." His smile was faint. "Very well." The camera pulled back. The entire campus shook. Every dorm window lit red. Every classroom door unlocked. Every mirror turned black. Every banner lowered to half-mast. The chapel bell rang once. Then again. Then again. Dean Nightingale continued. Let us see what you build without protection. The founder pack split open. A pulse of red light burst from the chapel and rolled across campus. On every phone, the screen went black. White words appeared. Book 2 status, city free. Campus unsealed. Welcome to the heart. The message vanished. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Saint Nocturne screamed.